All right. Hello to everyone tuning in right now. This Impulse Core Party for the year 2008. The show is called The Game, not the recent teenager thing, but actual title of the show. If this is your first time tuning into one of these watch parties, basically we've got a panel here that participated in some way or another in 2008. We talk about the year, we watch the show, we have a fun time about all this. If you have any comments, questions, or things you want to drop, you can do so in the Facebook Watch Party channel right here. I'm watching it live, so I will answer it or pose the question to someone if I also, we are, as everyone is, trying to navigate this pandemic. We are 100% a nonprofit youth organization, and we exist to serve the youth that are in our group. So, because of that, we don't really have a large arsenal of money to help us survive this current time. If you are in any position that you can help us out, please go to our website at www.impulseyoutharts.org. Go over to the financials page and you donate there either to a specific cause or to the general group. And lastly, we have launched a new online based educational offering. It's called the Impulse Institute. Think of it as community college, but in a true impulse fashion, in the way that without prerequisites, you can learn anything that we teach. So if you've never played snare before, we've got a percussion teacher that can teach you that. And then the next month you want to brush up on your clarinet skills because you've got auditions coming up. We've got a woodwind teacher that can take you on for some lessons. Say you've wanted to learn conducting from someone who has their master's in conducting. You could take conducting lessons or music theory or music history or so many other things. You can find out more about that at the Impulse website, which is www.impulseyoutharts.org, and it's under the Programs tab. It's called Impulse Institute. You can learn more there, or you can email me at core director, which is CORPS, director at impulseyoutharts.org. Now that's enough of me. We're actually going to introduce our panel and get going on this entire thing. I'm really excited about that, but we're going to go in order. So let's start first with John Castro.
Hello, I'm John Castro. I marched Impulse 2008, 2009 on the mellophone, and right now I am a geotechnical engineer in Tulsa, Oklahoma, so kind of far from my California roots.
Although you're far, you're part of the family. That's
Yep.
why you're here. All right, Sarah, you're up.
All right. Hi, I'm Sarah Meyer. I also marched 2008, 2009, and I was in the color guard. And right now I'm just staying home.
Staying home taking care of the cute kids, though. So,
Yes, every day.
which, as many will say, if you've all been home with your kids, is a 14 times more stressful than a normal job. So, I'm sure a lot of you parents can relate to what this fall is going to look like and having your kids stuck at home. Anyways, next up is Andrew.
Hi, my name's Andrew Morris. I marched 2007, 2008, and 2010 with Impulse. In 2008, I was on the battery percussion. And currently, I teach primarily at a bunch of high schools. I teach at Strike Percussion. I'm also studying entrepreneurship at Florida Gulf Coast University and just launched my own drum pad business, Turtle Pads. Be sure to check that out at theturtlepad.com.
Yeah. Alumni of the course starting a business. Everyone go check it out and get some awesome backpacks that have a drum pad. Get into it. Please check that. Next up is his father, Bino.
Hey, y'all, I'm Bino Morris, and I think I'm the old man in the group here. And as 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 I think they call me, that's how. Since I'm so old, but I
Wizard.
uh, am the sound consultant at Mandarins, and I did Impulse 2000. What was that, Andrew? 7,
You
8.
started with me in 7, and I think you were there until
There you go.
like 11 or 12. No, 10
And I
at least.
did help out, I think, in between 9 and 11 also.
Yep.
But you know what? Anything for this sport. This is where I got my start. So yeah, that's what I currently do right now. I'm staying home, trying to see what things I can do, and otherwise, because this hurt the audio people. It's hurt all of us, but we're just trying to stay safe.
Next up, I would say co-host, but really has been the spearhead of all these watch parties, Raphael.
Hi, I'm Raphael. I marched Impulse 2001 and 2005, Euphonium 01, Contra from 02 to 05. I currently sit on the board for Impulse now. I am the current secretary. I taught visual in 2018. Yeah, 2018. And I'm currently music director at Duarte Unified School District.
It all blurs together when you're trying to figure out your years in this wacky black and yellow family.
I know.
And last, my name is Aaron Zeilinger. I'm a charter member in 99. I marched complete seasons 01 through 03 as a mellophone player. I was a cook in 2004 and 2005. I was a recruiter in 2008. And I've been the corps director since 2018. Thank you all for joining us. Oh, I'm also the director of the New Impulse Institute, as I plugged earlier. So, with all of that aside, we're going to launch into our questions.
All right. So, John, you mentioned that you started in 07, but you weren't on our panel, last week. And Sarah and Andrew, you said you marched 07. John and Sarah, you guys both mentioned you guys marched 08. So this question is actually for all of you guys. What brought you all to Impulse? Let's start with Andrew.
Yeah, absolutely. So the funny thing is, I guess you could say it was definitely an impulse decision. At the time, I really wanted to march drum corps, because my dad, Bino, as you see him, he marched his time, and I heard a lot of stories about drum corps. So it was a big motivator for me, like, to get into drum corps and, have as many stories as he did. And then, funny enough, one of the battery instructors for my high school was Corwin Hendricks. So he was a huge, when I told him I wanted to do drum corps, he was like, well, you should probably come to Impulse because he's going to be there. So it was a good time. And then I remember my first day auditioning at Impulse in 2007. I didn't know anybody, but Dad had showed up there, and I think Ernie was there, Ken White was there, and it was like Dad just knew everybody that was already there. So it was a very interesting way to see it, and I liked that connection. Like, even though he hadn't seen or worked with these people in a long time, he knew them, and they were talking with each other like they'd known each other for decades.
John?
Well, it all started for me in Thanksgiving of 2005. I just finished up my freshman year of high school marching season, and my uncle, we were at Thanksgiving, and my uncle was flipping through the channels and came across the ESPN championship broadcast. And he'd been a marching band in high school, and he knew about drum corps, and I never heard about it. So he was going on and on about how cool it was. And after that, I was like, I fell down the rabbit hole deep. I mean, I was all about drum corps, and grew up in Orange County, so I knew I wanted to march, but I played saxophone. I didn't play any brass instruments. So I decided I want to march, so I got to learn a brass instrument. So I did my junior year of high school. I tried to learn French horn, marching French horn that we had, and just so I can get the lips buzzing. And then later that year, or the end of that year, I went out to Impulse because I was like, well, I looked around at a few corps and I liked what Impulse was doing, so I went out for it.
You know what? I'm just kind of in my head. I didn't pay attention. Something caught my ear that you said. For some reason, apparently Impulse seems to track a lot of saxophone players. Our charter drum major was a saxophone player. Our other drum major, Omar Vidana, Kyle Spracker, who now plays in New England. Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong.
New England Conservatory.
Yep. And then there's you, and I know I'm missing some other saxophone players, but why do we keep attracting saxophone players?
Got it right. That's a good question.
Because we're cooler than saxophone. Duh.
Yeah. I mean, that is definitely true.
All right, Sarah, I'm assuming you play saxophone too, then went to guard.
No, funny enough. But my story does have a saxophone player in it. So the way that I got to join Impulse was the drum major for 2008 and 2009, I think too, Mandy Glimpse, who is a saxophone player. She was actually the one that invited me to rehearsal. She said, "Hey, I'm part of this group. Would you be interested in coming?" And I was like, "Sure, why not?" So went and checked it out. It was in the spring sometime, so the show was kind of already going on, and they were just like, "Oh, go over there, go find a spot over there," and they just kind of plugged me in. So yeah, I actually joined because of the drum major, Mandy.
Nice. So backtracking just a little bit, Andrew had brought up, we have a father-son duo here, but Andrew had brought up that Bino had told a lot of stories from his younger years in drum corps, and I know I've seen a lot of posts from you on either Drum Corps Friends or on Drum Corps Coffee Shop. But Bino, tell me a little bit about your involvement with Impulse and what it was like being on tour here as a volunteer after so many years, being around the activity.
Well, it's when I got into Impulse, I just wanted to do whatever I could to help, and my profession was sound, so I did a lot of things with Coachella and some other things. So I was very experienced with sound. So, and at that time, we were just starting to bring sound into drum corps at a higher level, and we could only do what we could afford back in those days. And so yeah, that's one thing I liked about volunteering. My wife was on the cooking crew, and we did whatever we could to help out with Impulse. And then the money is not an object to what makes a corps better. And there was nothing that was ever involved, and volunteering was it there. And I enjoyed my time, and going back to drum corps, that's why I knew my son needed to get into it even before he was able to march. He saw what drum corps was, and and how much work there is into it at that point. So I didn't have any problem of coming over and volunteering my services. So
yeah, one of these days, if you get the chance, you got to see the new rig that there's a gentleman that's been volunteering with the Corps named Chris Mathis, who's a part of the earlier days. He owns Calm Innovations AV. He actually partnered with a bunch of different groups to get Impulse a new sound system, and it's ridiculous. It is a ridiculous sound system. You got to check it out one of these days.
So you still have some of my microphones and stuff. Can I get those back?
Yes, you absolutely can. We'll trade for that NBA performance, right?
Yeah. Trust me. I was looking at Santa Clara Cadets, and I'm like, dude, those are some of my mics. So there's my I've left.
Absolutely.
Okay, here's a question for everybody. The show was called The Game. What was the concept of the show, and what games did you all play? I know at one point when I was looking at the video, I saw the guard playing like tic-tac-toe. I know Chris Mathis said that he heard a couple of game songs within the show. So this time I'll start with Sarah, since I mentioned guard playing tic-tac-toe.
Yeah, so I remember when they were like, "Oh, by the way, we're going to bring in this giant tic-tac-toe board, and you guys are going to have to carry it around the field and dance around with it." And we all kind of looked at each other like, "Okay, yeah, sure." And I think it was literally just some like PVC pipe kind of fashioned together so that we could, collapse it pretty easily. We had some X's and O's, so yeah, I distinctly remember dancing around with a few X's and O's on the field, which it was fun. I mean, it was a really fun experience, especially for it being my first drum corps experience. It was a really fun show. So yeah, that was definitely fun.
With the Garter, was that the only thing you guys played, just tic-tac-toe, or was there anything else that you can remember?
I mean, during like the pre-show, we didn't really have. I don't think we really had an official pre-show, but when we were like setting up, you know, before the show started, we were playing games like Jump Frog or Leapfrog, or like kind of dancing around with each other, like because we were told to, you know, kind of like act like kids. And so during the on-field setup, we played games like that. I don't really remember a whole lot of other games that we might have played,
I do.
but for sure, tic-tac-toe.
John?
So like Sarah mentioned, the pre-show, I think our little corner of mellophones, we were playing baseball with our horns. It was just a little diamond we had, and we would play baseball before the show. And then I think I kind of bled into the first few bars, and then we would go off and march. So that was pretty fun. And then during the drum break, there was kind of like this thing where the horn section kind of did like a hide and seek. We ran behind the pit and hid, and then popped up, and then went off onto our other dots.
Andrew?
So I don't remember any like specific games we played like with the battery. It was just the typical Impulse battery shenanigans that goes on pretty much every year. Just the things we would talk about like on the field before, but I do remember a lot of, you know, if you remember the 2000s, then that was the big time for like you lost the game, like. So everybody watching this Impulse watch party right now just lost the game. Just sorry to let you know, but it was a lot of shenanigans that you know, it's as much as I can get into it, I think.
So does anybody remember what the concept of the show was?
I do.
Andrew?
It was about like embracing that childhood side of you. So I think I remember the concept being really diving into like during school recess party kind of thing. So a lot of the games were more younger oriented, very childish. You know, like we have the balls and everything like that come up in the show. So it was just all about embracing that inner child.
Yeah, I remember the balls. Having to like carry them around and stuff and dance with those. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and I think there were voiceovers through parts of it, of like you know, childhood sayings and stuff like that. You know, come on and play.
Eric Huska chat said those red balls went everywhere. Several exclamation points.
I'm not gonna lie. When I first heard the title of the game, I thought of wrestling Triple H and his entrance music. That's what I thought of. So, okay.
And it's not just an early 2000s thing. The second we posted this flyer that said Impulse 2008, the game, a bunch of newer members said, "Oh man, I lost the game." So it's still going. But to tie into the next question, Andrew, this was a definitely an odd sized battery for this year. We had 7 snares, 3 tenors, 5 bass drums, and 2 plates. Is there any story behind this or how it came to be?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So the one thing I loved about Impulse is that Impulse has never struggled for you know, filling out the battery section. That's been one of my favorite things, is that Impulse's percussion section has always been strong, and especially coming from 2006, 2007. You know, 2007 had a lot of most of that quad line. I was very what's the word? I looked up to a lot of them. You know, Nick Arce, Andrew Verduzco, and all of them. So coming into 2008, it wasn't necessarily that we were struggling to find members so much as we were really getting into the nit and grit of who is strong enough to be on this percussion section. You know, and I was fortunate enough to make that cut. So it was just a very talented pool, and they decided instead of going 4 quads, you know, we're going to go with 3 very strong members The snare line was the same way, just 7 very strong members.
All right, so this next question is for you. Andrew talked about percussion. You get to talk about the guard. When I looked at the video, it was a very small guard. I counted 4. So was the guard able to click very well because there was like a little of you guys, so you guys got to know each other a lot better than like, let's say, like snares who were like 7. Were you just able to click very well? And what challenges did you guys have to overcome because of your size?
So yeah, there were 4 of us. At one point, there was a 5th member. I think around the time when we had the Long Beach show, there was 5 of us, but that didn't really last very long. So yeah, we were all really tight. All best friends basically. We're all stuck with each other. It's not like when you go to like a bigger corps, you have like 50 guard members. There's literally 4 of you, so we were all really close. We all got along, so that was really nice. We were like a really close little family, and we're all friends to this day. We all stay in touch with each other, which is really nice. But yeah, there were definitely some challenges to overcome because there were only 4 of us. We had to kind of spread out a lot more, fill up more of the space on the field to make it kind of look like we were bigger than we actually were. So, any small guard can attest to that, that, you can't all just stay like on the 50, like you have to spread out. And so, yeah, there were definitely some challenges. But we all got along great and we're all friends. So it made the summer really fun.
All right, next one's being aimed at John. It seems like there were a few holes during the show. Was that due to illnesses or injuries, or were we not able to fill those holes during that time? Like, walk us through what it looks like coming up to the show we're about to watch.
It was kind of a combination of both. I know we had a few people in the horn section dropped out late in preseason, or before our first few shows, for multitude of reasons, and but we also had some illnesses and injuries, and we were a bit more, I guess, optimistic in our goals. So we had to get the drill done pretty early in the season, and I think we had more interest earlier in the season, so we did our best to fill out with what we had. But there was one story now is our very first show, the day of our show, our section leader Hulk was injured, and he comes up to me like 7 hours before the show, says, "Hey, I can't march, so you got to go." And he has a solo. He's like, "You got to play my solo today." I was like, "Oh, all right, yeah, I'll do it. I'll get to my dot and everything." And so there's a few moments like that where you got to scramble for playing the solo 5 hours before you even knew it was gonna happen.
Yeah, so I can definitely tell you that the first season I took over as the corps director, we went through a gigantic shift where the Impulse was supposed to go on a nationwide tour. We ended up having to cut it short because I, at that time, couldn't work into my school schedule because I'm a high school teacher to go on a full nationwide tour. So we cut it in about April. We lost a huge chunk of the course. So we had to rewrite a bunch of the show as well. So I know that's not an uncommon thing in the lower level of the world-class divisions for there to be last-minute changes. And congrats on being able to pick it up at that last moment there. I know that's really, really stressful to get kicked into the hot seat at the last moment. But I can definitely say that Impulse has seen that happen many a times. But great job nonetheless. The next question is going to be aimed at Bino, which is really a bigger, broader thank you to volunteers that make Drum Corps happen. For a lot of the people that are watching right now, and a lot of people on Drum Corps Friends or Drum Corps Coffee Shop, all of you can attest to the fact that Drum Corps doesn't survive without volunteers, whether it be cooking crew or people to help out with the truck, or people that volunteer to be on the board of directors or fundraisers or parent helpers or anything like that. Volunteers are the backbone of Drum Corps, because like I said, it's mostly a non-profit organization. So, with all that aside, firstly, Bino, thank you for your help, but what were some of the things you helped with on tour that year in 2008?
Pretty much all I did was sound. I just made sure that we pieced together what we had from things and pieced together a pretty good, halfway decent sound system. But that was it. That's all I did, and I was there from start to finish. So I did not take any time off, and as I do now with drum corps, I come in and move-ins, and it's. I personally feel that what I was doing and what I do now is sound. So my goal is to make the drum corps sound as good as it can. I don't know if you're going to get to a question, but when you were saying I'm too old, did we already answer that one?
Yeah, I decided not to phrase it that way. But that was earlier on when we were talking about your involvement in the drum corps. But the reason why we had asked this question is I know, like in the recent years, we had a gentleman that was driving our semi-truck that at times was out there helping us push pit onto the field because he just wanted to help. And with world-class corps, oftentimes we have a handful of volunteers that end up doing everything. So that's why we were asking, like, what things you did.
No. You would have my wife that was also there. She did a lot. She was on the cooking crew. So, I feel those people, the food crew is the hardest working people besides the members in the corps. So, and you got your truck drivers, but those mothers worked very hard. So, and
hey, not just mothers. I cooked for 2 years too, sir.
Well, there you go. But for not having a food truck, did we have? We didn't really have a kitchen.
Cook on there. We took everything off.
And the kitchen
Wasn't a working kitchen.
Wasn't very working. My wife just said. So you're doing things off the cooking truck, and so I really appreciate that part of the group. I'm just there to make y'all sound good.
Yeah, for a lot of the people that are watching right now, I don't think, even if you've marched drum corps, if you didn't say thank you to your cooking crew 14 times a day, you failed at drum corps. Because I don't think a lot of drum corps members realize when you're marching, at least I didn't when I was marching, that being on the food crew means you get to sleep late because you're also doubling as a chaperone, and you wake up early because you're doubling as a chaperone, and you cook breakfast, and then you serve breakfast, and then you clean breakfast, and you catch an hour of sleep, and then maybe shower, and then you're cooking lunch, and then it just keeps going. It's a non-stop job. So for those of you watching, the next time you show up at a drum corps rehearsal, make sure you thank your volunteer cooks, because that is a crazy job. Absolutely insane. Anyways, enough from me. Go ahead, Raphael.
All right, Andrew. So we've had a couple of percussionists come join us at a watch party. So, and you being the percussion in this one, this year, the percussion captain head was one of our charter members, Nico.
Mm-hmm.
How was it like learning under him? And a side question to that too, when I was looking through the video, you guys are warming up. You guys start yelling in the middle, but at the same time, it almost sounds like you guys were singing some kind of a sequence. Was that just my ears playing a trick on me, or were you guys actually singing something during your warm-ups?
Okay, so first part, working under Nico was probably the best experience I could have asked for. Like 2008 was probably one of my favorite drum corps years, like in general. I ended up marching 5 years, two other drum corps outside of Impulse. But 2008 is probably my first or second favorite year that I marched. And most of it came from because of the staff, because Nico was such a great guy to work with, and I still talk with him like very often. I'll call him at least once a month or every other month. Dad's always been like, you leave Nico alone, he's busy. And I'm like no, I need to talk to him. So working with Nico and Corwin Hendricks was a real great treat of mine. And then, so what you're hearing we used to do our warm-up sequence on the field, and then we would do what we called screaming eights. So we would literally tap it off. Rocky would tap it off like normal, tati tati ta 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 ta, and then just on the attack, just full blown just the whole time, the whole 64 counts, just belting as loud as you can. Everybody is. It was a good way to get rid of like all the nerves and everything like that right before a show run.
That's the correct way to use a turtle pad as well, right? Is when you practice on it, you scream. That doesn't weird anyone out.
And then we would play Go Go Power Rangers too. Correct?
Yep. Dad would play. That was Dad's sound check. When they tested the sound. Nowadays, like you'll hear blue coats, like everybody hits their instrument just to check the sound. Dad was like, you know what, I'm gonna play the Power Rangers theme song as loud as I can.
John, were you gonna say something there?
Yeah, I was gonna say. I guess the secret at the time was I was and still am a drummer. So coming into this, having Nico, even though I was in the horn section, I mean, I knew of him before going in, and that man can run a great ensemble rehearsal. I'll tell you what, he knows what he's doing, and that was really cool.
All right, next question is actually back at you, John. It seems like between 2007 and 2008, we had a little bit of a turnover there. What did it look like for the leadership, and who did you turn to carry on that impulse spirit going from 2007 to 2008?
Well, I had at least there was a few kind of anchors that we had, at least one in each section. In my section, I had Hulk, who was a really cool guy, and he was really serious, and a lot of stuff that he would have us do, I didn't understand, at the beginning. Like, we were always a section that was always doing extra work after rehearsals, like workouts, and he would have us run with our cases above our heads and stuff. But he really knew his stuff. He knew how to. He wasn't, super strict and mean, but he knew how to keep us in line. But then, we also had Shane in the trumpet section. We had, I think it was Danny on Barry, and then Dom on Barry, but even without having the previous experience, Mandy was a great drum major because she was doing a really good job keeping us interfaced with the staff, and if we needed something, we could ask her, and she would be able to get the answer. If she didn't know it, she can get it real quick. So we still had the people we could turn to that were able to help us out. Because a lot of it, I think. Other than Hulk, I think it was all rookies in the mellow section. So, we were like chickens with their head cut off at the first beginning of the season.
All right, so I have a question for you. And Andrew and John, you can chime in as well. So I heard that this year you guys have had a little bit of a problem with weather. Apparently, it all happened around LaPorte, Indiana. Don't know if I pronounced that correctly, so we'll see. So maybe we should stay away from that city. I don't know. But apparently there was a flood and a tornado that you guys had to shelter inside of YMCA. So can you elaborate on those two things?
Yeah, so first, we could talk about the flood. We were staying in LaPorte, Indiana. I think it was the Indiana State Fairgrounds, actually, that we were staying at. We were staying in like little like rec room, I think. And I just remember me and the two other girls in the color guard were all kind of sleeping next to the door. And I think there was a member of staff right there as well. And, middle of the night, we hear, people wrestling around and, talking and stuff. And we wake up and we're like, what's going on? They're like, it's flooding, you guys need to move your stuff. And you look down and your sleeping bag is just covered in water. Because not a lot of people, at that time at least, were doing air mattresses. Like you see now, a lot of people using air mattresses. So we were literally like right on the ground with our sleeping bags. And we were just like surrounded by water. And so then, we had to pick up all our stuff. There were some tables over in the corner. We ended up sleeping on the top of some tables just to like keep our stuff dry. So yeah, that was fun, and we had to hang our sleeping bags somewhere so that they could dry. And then a separate incident, we were on our way to a YMCA, and we get out of the buses, and all of a sudden, you know, you see those tornado warning sirens going off, and you're just like, oh no. So they're like, all right, get down to the basement. Like literally, we step off the bus and have to go straight down into the basement. Thankfully, I think that's where the showers were. But because, you know, lightning and everything, we couldn't shower yet. So we were all just kind of huddled there. You know, some people were scared. They didn't know what was going on. So I think there's a few pictures of the girls in like the basement. I was just like, okay, this is going to be over. So yeah, that was definitely some interesting events. I mean, I know it happens a lot when you're in the Midwest, but it was like one right after the other, like flood, tornado. It was definitely interesting. I don't know if Andrew or John has anything else to say, but fun times.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the flood was a really funny part because the tornado thing happened just like you said. We showed up to the YMCA and immediately are herded into the locker rooms. The flood for me was just kind of a funny story because I was definitely asleep. And to anyone, you know, like my dad can attest, like when I'm asleep, I'm out. Like chances of you waking me up, especially like coherently, are not high. So when Richard Rogers, who was volunteering at the time, came by and like poked me a bunch and was like, hey, Andrew, it's flooding. And I was like, okay, that's great. And I went back to sleep. And I just remember waking up to him, like he threw my stuff on top of me, like my bag and everything, and then grabbed my sleeping bag and just dragged me across the whole sleeping area. So I mean, fun times, but you don't get those stories without like you don't get those stories if you don't march drum corps. So
Yeah, that tornado day was, at least before I moved to Oklahoma, it was the single craziest day of weather. I mean, still one of the most memorable days I've ever had, and one of the craziest days of weather. Because I remember we woke up and we did our morning stretch and run, and halfway through our run it started raining, so we sprinted back to our place to get, and we ate breakfast, and it kept raining, so we did rehearsal in like a pig barn, and that was really fun because it got really loud in there. And then after lunch, it was fine. So we go out to our field to rehearse, and it is the most humid I've ever been in. I think even now. And, we were out there for 5 hours, and I was just completely wet. Everything was just soaked and wet. And right when rehearsal was ending, we look over on the horizon, and it is just like pitch black, like apocalyptically black. And you're like, that doesn't look good. So we go in for dinner, and then that's when we get on the buses and drive into town, and, sirens are going off, and those sirens, first time you've ever heard them is really unsettling. But now I'm used. Now that was the first time, and after that, I've been able to find. I live where there are quite a few tornadoes now, and those sirens aren't as bad as they were that first time now. So it definitely prepared me for living in Oklahoma.
Yeah, I remember. I don't know if Aaron marched this year that I'm talking about, but I remember when I marched, maybe we marched. We had to stop somewhere, and we saw the big old red pole with the light on top for the tornado warning. And we're like, what's that? Some guy who was like janitor's like, oh, that's just our tornado warning. And, you go inside the school and everything. It tells you exactly where to go for shelter. And we're rehearsing, and the alarm went off, and we all just stopped. And the janitor's like, don't worry, it's just a test. We're like, you sure?
Yeah. That's the funny thing about just being in different places and how certain things become normal. I remember when someone out of state came and stayed with us in California, and we had an earthquake in the middle of the night. It wasn't a big one, but when you're in an earthquake area, just like tornadoes, they become normal. So the house is shaking, but like I woke up and I'm like, oh, it's not that bad. But the person who was from out of state was losing their mind that the house was shaking. I was like, it's okay, don't worry about it. Like, it's not that bad. They're like, what do you mean it's not that bad? The house is shaking. It's like, no, it's normal here. So that's how I feel about every place you go in the country, whether it be humidity or tornadoes or hurricanes or earthquakes. It's just like the people in that area are like, destroy some houses, we build up, whatever.
It's it's an earthquake, but it's not the big one, so you don't need to worry about it.
Oh yeah, I go out into my porch now when there's a siren going off and trying to look for a tornado.
How close? How
Oh,
close
yeah,
is it?
I've seen a few since I moved here, so.
Well, so you all know I live 1 mile from the fairgrounds that we were at, and the tornado sirens just were tested this morning. So now you're bringing back memories with the tornado siren.
Awesome memories. All right, it's about that time for us to actually watch the show. If you're tuning in right now, this is the Impulse 2008 Watch Party. The show's title, not a meme, is The Game, and it's talking about several games. So I hope all of you enjoy the show. We're going to have some questions afterwards. And if you'd like to support us or find out what's going on, make sure to go to www.impulseyoutharts.org. Also, if you're an alumni, and you're looking at me and John's hats, and you go, man, I don't remember where my Zot cap is, guess what? We are going to be releasing a one-time only for alumni release of these hats again that will have your numbers of the years you marched engraved, well, not engraved, but embroidered on the side of your hat. Engraved would be bad. It would probably hurt us. But embroidered on the side of the hat. There's going to be an order form that's going to pop up on our Facebook, our Instagram, or on the website. Keep an eye on all three of them, or on some of them. Either way, when that order form pops up, make sure to place that order, and we'll get you your hat. Or even if you have a hat like Bino's holding up, I have a couple of them, and you'd like another one with your years on it, make sure to place that order when it comes up. So without further ado, this is the 2008 show, The Game.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the field from Buena Park, California, Impulse. Drum Major Mandy Glimpse, is your corps ready? Performing their 2008 program, The Game, Drum Corps International is proud to present Impulse.
Woo!
Bring back memories. All right. Andrew, I have a question for you before we move on to our last two questions. You mentioned you went out to go march under the Corps. We've had members here going to march Santa Clara, Blue Devils, Madison, Crossman, and we've always liked to ask them this question and just see how they respond. But do you think what you learned at Impulse prepared you for world class?
Oh, so 100%. Everything that I learned from Impulse, just whether it came from, discipline, rehearsal, etiquette, and everything like that, especially the process. Nico, the way Nico operated was he treated us like a world class. He treated us like a world class percussion ensemble, with that same expectation of, rehearsal etiquette needs to be fantastic. No second between reps. The process is that, we trust in the process in the sense that how we structure phrases to practice and everything like that always builds towards better understanding of the phrase and better structuring of dynamics and rudiments and sound quality and rhythm and everything like that. So when I would audition for other ensembles, other drum corps, or indoor, because I did indoor for a while too, all those fundamentals I developed started at Impulse.
All right, now for one of the questions. We have last two questions that we normally ask every panel. So we're going to go down the roster and favorite part of the show. Let's start with John.
Favorite part of the show was probably that closer. We had a lot of really cool parts in the mellophone that, watching that show again, I did not forget like almost one note of that. I still remembered even the fingers and everything, and there were just a lot of really cool parts. I'm really glad I played mellophone that year because, especially the closer, we had some really fun licks in there that were a lot of fun to play.
See, you heard it here. I mean, I don't know why people poo-poo on the mellophones. They always get the best lines.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking as a mellophone player myself, I play trumpet normally.
I
always get the best lines. Just saying. Anyways, next up, how about Sarah? Your favorite moment of the show?
That's a tough one. I'd probably say the ballad, because I feel like that was when we could have like the most fun. Like you saw we brought out that giant tic-tac-toe board, and that was the one going, yeah, I won. Like, I don't know. I think that was probably my favorite part of the whole show, was just the ballad, because, we got to bring out our inner kid.
Andrew.
Hey, that's you could probably guess. There's the drum feature. That drum feature, the way it started with the solo phrase, add in for the snares, and then add in the quads and bass into the big feature moment when we come forward after the push. It was just a long, choppy paradiddle phrase, just paradiddle, 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 just for days. It was great. And I think I was 16 around that time. So that was just the coolest thing I'd played.
And Bino, even though you weren't marching that year, what was your favorite?
Oh, the whole show. Because you know what? If I didn't make you all sound good, and that the whole show was very nice to me. So, and you know, when you say I'm not marching DCI anymore, as a sound person, that's not true because my last DCI was last year. So, as a sound person, you are still performing the show. So, yeah, I'm not done yet with drum corps. I think I'm like one of the oldest people still doing DCI. So,
I don't know. Jack Bevins has been out there forever and a day.
yeah, but he ain't performing, brother.
This is true. This
I
is
love
true.
Jack. But if my chord sounds bad, I get called out on the tapes. It's like, what's wrong with that sound?
Called out on the tapes and from the box.
That's true. So yeah, no, you know what? All of it's good, and you know I love DCI. So without this, you know, I think it brings a great structure to kids and ladies and gentlemen that are growing up, and so I encourage it to everybody. I think drum corps is better than sports. You know, we learn more than what sporting kids learn in football, and you know, we know what a real team is. So without each and every one of us, it's nothing. So everybody is important on the field.
Here's another question for all. Being this includes you too, and I'll call you guys by name. What was your favorite moment of tour or of the season? So I'll start with Sarah.
Man, I don't know. I mean, it was my first drum corps season, so it was, you know, my very first experience, and the fact that we got to go on tour, because in 2009 we didn't really go on a nationwide tour. So the fact that I was able to do that my very first year in drum corps was like really cool. So I mean, I think just the whole tour in general was really fun. I don't know if I could pick a favorite.
John?
Well, I got to echo what Sarah said because that was my first tour, and I still haven't experienced anything like that since. Tour is just such an experience, and you know, there's so many great moments there. I remember, I mean, I think it was our last rehearsal at our before our final performance, and it was at a high school, and like they had carved out a field for us somewhere in the backwoods, and like they had to get it mowed. We couldn't do anything, so we spray painted, you know, our field on the blacktop, and I think we had a 60-yard line there for a little while. And but then, you know, that field was such a mess that, you know, we had like we call it the Grand Canyon right down the middle of it because there's just a giant rut. But like that last rehearsal was such a good time, and you know, it was a real fun moment. I mean, the whole tour was just incredible, but that was really fun. Last time, you know, rehearsing with everybody.
Andrew?
Man, I'm just remembering that that last rehearsal field he was talking about. That I just remembered it. That was such a bad rehearsal field. Freshly cut, and the grass was like thick. That kind of thick grass that like cuts you when you walk by it. But you know, like everybody else, and like I said before, like I think 2008 was probably my favorite season of drum corps in general. You know, and even though I said I marched 5 years total, but I guess if I had to put any one thing out, after the season was over in 2008, my dad had actually coordinated a lot of fundraising gigs with the drum line. We played for a couple sports teams, Palm Springs Powers, the minor league baseball team. We played for the Lakers 1 year. Say again?
Never mind.
No. yeah, we played for the Lakers 1 year. That was funny. Was it Nick Parsons? I think somebody's like, hey, somebody's like, hey, when you go out there, don't say anything to anybody, like especially Kobe Bryant. And then when we get out there, the first thing is like one of the snare guys is Kobe, Kobe. That was a great time. So I mean, that was just like an incredible experience. Like taking that drum corps experience that we did, it's very unique to the activity, but being able to apply it to, you know, like a world renowned sport.
And Bino?
Well, I think all of it was good, but it was the best when we got to my hometown in LaPorte where I live. And I was home before DCI was over. And, you know, just hanging with the staff afterwards. And, you know, that's the best part of drum corps and drum corps in general. But even in this corps, just hanging out with Nico and Corwin and you know, those were some awesome times. So, and watching the kids get better, that was the best time of being in this corps.
Well, I don't know if John or Andrew, if this can compete, but and Eric can testify to this. Remember our final site, we got there, it was a military base, and we did have grass that was like up to our knees that was not cut when we got there. So they cut it very last minute, and that's what we had. And I had to paint the field afterwards. But
yeah, on dying grass chaff, basically.
Yeah, so real quick thing, this goes for everybody watching our watch parties. We've enjoyed the panels that we've had. If by any chance you would like to be on a panel for any remaining shows from 2009 all the way up to 2019, which is 11 shows left, you can email me at secretary@impulseyouthArts.org and let me know what years you marched, and we'll try to fit you in. We'll fit you into those shows. As well, we are missing the shows for 2012 and 13. So if by any chance you happen to have those, email me at secretary@impulseyouthArts.org if you have a copy.
Yeah, I can't emphasize that enough. It was quite a scramble. We bugged both Bino and Andrew about this, of trying to get the shows of these years. Especially some of these years that we didn't get an official DCI DVD. That's why we're missing these particular years. So 2012 and 2013, if you're out there and you've got a copy of that DVD, we'd be more than happy to pay you for the shipping so that we can burn that and put it in our archives. And for alumni, we've started a photo archive and a video archive that we plan on making available to alumni only, so that we can share these pictures and videos of these memories that a lot of us, I know for me in particular, haven't been able to access for a long time. So if you've got access to those years, or if you want to get involved and be on these panels, they're a lot of fun. Don't be scared about being on these. It's really straightforward. You get to see the questions beforehand, and it's great to reminisce. So please email us, like Raphael just said, at secretary@impulseyouthArts.org. Also, like I said in the beginning of the broadcast, we are currently in a pandemic, and I know everyone is financially struggling right now. But if you do have the means, we could use help. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. All donations are tax deductible, and you can donate to us at www.impulseyouthArts.org on the financial page. On the flip side, if you're a student and you're looking to learn new musical skills, please check out our Impulse Institute at the same website. This was the 2008 watch party for the show titled The Game. Please join us next week, Saturday once again at 6 p.m. for 2009, and we'll see you next week.